Hello, lovelies, and welcome to our next attempt at hashtag World Building Whip Chat. It has been quite a struggle today. I was recording this morning, and then I did an update on my computer at lunch. And when I got onto my stream at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, my microphone was not working. I've removed the update. I have reinstalled the audio driver. I have done all of the troubleshooting, everything I can do. And I can't fix it. I don't know how to fix it. I can't figure it out. I'm going to have to, I guess, call them or something. So yay, Gamer Daughter was nice enough to let me use her headphones. So I just going to do this off the cuff and sorry, everyone. I know we're 4 hours late. Apologies. So, welcome to Hold My Latte 2022. Not you two 2022, because really you just need to stop. Just stop. And today we are going to be doing the second part of hashtag whip chat for hashtag world building. And last time we talked about some just, how do you feel about world building? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What do you like? What do you do when you have a world building plot hole? How do you handle white room syndrome? And I did realize that I'd left a few terms out last time, things that I just knew that it didn't actually occur to me to tell people. So I threw the information into the video description on the last video, and I'm just going to tell you right now. White room syndrome is where you're following this character in the stream of consciousness, but you know nothing about the environment. It's just the character could be in a white room. You just don't know what they're doing, where they're going, anything like that. So describing the world around them is very, very important. Another thing, for a whip world, when we say world, we mean the universe the whip is in. That's all the places, all the characters, all the thing is your whip world. Um, for if you have a scene, that is the action or event or what is happening in a specific setting. The setting is the things that are around your characters, the place where the action is taking place, or the interaction or the event. It's where is this happening? It can, be a room, a building, a castle, a forest, a cave, a spaceship, whatever you want. So it's just your world is everything that is not your plot. Your scene is what is happening in chapter from chapter to chapter and multiple times in chapters. And your setting is where those things are taking place. So that's just the fast and dirty of it. It's what is going on around your characters so you don't have white room syndrome. Speaking of characters, there are many types of characters. There's many ways to define them. And if you Google character types for writing or for authors, you will literally get thousands and thousands of articles, videos. Everybody's got a thing. There's 2 character types. There's 30 character types. There's 7, 9, 5. It just, whatever number you want to have that number of character types, you can find it. We're just going to do the 4 basic character types: your protagonist or hero, your antagonist or enemy, the confidant slash friend slash companion person. Now, you need one of these for both your protagonist and your antagonist because everybody's got a posse. And then you have the love interest. That we're just going to use those 4 types. Just very, very simple. There are lots of tools for building characters. And so without further ado, we're just going to continue where we were last time. And the first thing is to decide is who is who. So whip chat, question number 7 is, when you meet your characters, do you get to know them or do you already know them? Do you create a set of personality traits? Do they have obsessions or phobias or insecurities or quirks? These are the things that make characters interesting, that combinations. I build my characters with combinations of hardware traits, which is how they always act, and with stress reactions, because people under stress will react very, very differently than they normally do. And in the IRL, in the real world, we have hard and soft traits, and we have that are just wired into us. Things that are fluid and change, and things that are like, this is the way you're going to be every single time this situation comes up. And then you have stress reactions. And having those kind of things makes characters interesting. It makes them seem like someone you might want to get to go. We all carry stones in the core of our personality. We cling to these during a stress storm. But we also have these goggles that come from our experience that we view the world through. And so when you're building a character, try to think about, how does my character view the world? How do they look at the world? What do they see? What is around them? How do they feel about this? I feel like believable, relatable characters need to kind of have a few of these traits. I mean, even if you're writing something that could never happen in our real world, your reader still needs to find some common ground with these characters, so to find some way to relate with them. I mean, there's so many books and so many systems on how to build characters, and from like everything from psych profiling to the Myers-Briggs personality test to personality training using zodiac traits. I mean, this is the year of the tiger, so the tiger traits are very aggressive traits. Or the Greek zodiacs use traits by the month. If you're a Libra, if your character is a Libra, they just got to talk about everything. Now there's a popularity of using tarot to draw personality traits. You draw 3 to 5 cards for your character's personality traits. So you don't have to get complicated. The easiest place to start is to model them on people you know. But that said, you need to be very, very careful, because you don't want to offend someone unless they've offended you. And then, yeah, you can kill them in your whip. Perks of being a writer. We will be going, I have a set of 30 questions that I meet when I meet my characters. I interview them. So that will be a future whip chat video, is I will have a character interview video coming in the future, so that you can see kind of how I meet my characters. Moving on, hashtag whip chat, hashtag world building, question number 8. Is, let's see if I can get that pulled up. Okay, thank you. Question number 8. Is your world going to have one base culture or many cultures overlapping and interacting? Now, if you're writing contemporary fiction and you're basically in a city environment or town environment or rural environment, or historical fiction where you're in a very, very set environment, you can get away with one culture. You can get away with the not having to have cultures overlapping. Writing contemporary mostly means one general culture with maybe a few microculture elements. But for sci-fi, sci-fan, or fantasy, um, you need a broader scope. Um, one of the very interesting criticisms of the Lord of the Rings trilogy is that it will spontaneously turn off. I don't know why it does that. Um, creating cultures, it's a very careful thing. I mean, you can use existing cultures, but you have to be very careful to tread the gray line of cultural appropriation because you don't want to portray people that are a different culture from you in a negative light. So that is something you need to watch for. I in my in the Huntsman of Adamos quartet, I went into the Twin Kingdoms of Aetheria and Zalusia, and they started as the same people, but over basically 50,000 years, they really split off into very, very divergent cultures to where one was more like modern holistic metaphysical spirituality and the other one became this very harshly brutal child sacrificing blood offering religion that was a lot like some of the religions of ancient Mesopotamia. So you really can like split the cultures apart and you don't have to take a real world culture. You can cherry pick, but as again, I will give a caution. If you are cherry picking from minority cultures, you need to have a sensitivity reader and you need to be respectful. All right, whip chat. Question number 9 for world building. How many forms of religions or spiritual beliefs do you have? Do they pray? Do they meditate? Do they make sacrifices? Do they give offerings? Is it required or voluntary? Now, this just adds a layer to your culture in your world. You don't have to have them like doing these big practices and stuff. It, it can be, you can make little tiny references and it changes the perspective of how you view your characters. Um, there are also things that you need to be cautious of. Um, there are some places where you cannot refer to certain things. Um, there are religious traits that you have to respect. Um, whether you're talking about Catholic saints or you're talking about the Prophet of Islam. Be respectful. If you are talking about deities and gods of other ethnic groups, the Hindu pantheon is huge. Be respectful. Um, um, another question that you can put in to blend in is, are there groups of zealots? Are there people who very, very strongly believe what they believe? And is there a character or something that they've lost their faith, or maybe they're somewhere in between? Another thing, and I know this seems weird to make this parallel, but if you have a character who is getting therapy, literally the opinions on therapy run the same gambit as the opinions on religion. And it's okay. I just a few little scenes of someone expressing how they feel about this will make the difference in giving some depth of character, some relatability, something they believe that's beyond just, oh, they're eating a cheeseburger, or oh, they're going to a sporting event. Now, personally, I love writing cultures and religions. So it plays a role in all of my series except one. Um, but even in that series, there are a few things mentioned about it. It's the Revelation Night series, and literally the main character, Quinn Shalom, after her children are killed, she's having this crisis of faith because she's a werewolf now, and she was a human, and she's asking, "Am I going to go to heaven and see my children? Because I don't know where werewolves go." So that brings a little interesting thing to her story. In the Relic in Time of Shadows series, the one that I talk about mostly, Daisy is a non practicing Catholic who struggles to reconcile her beliefs with her new abilities as an oracle and the war that she is forced to wage against the shadow servants of the devourer entity. And in many ways, these things are worse than the demons she learned about in catechism, and she actually mentions that at a couple of times. You know, the devil she grew up with just wanted to conquer the world, and now she's faced with organizing a war against an entity who is literally seeking to devour the universe itself. And so she's really struggling with her faith. And so having that layer of struggle is, do I believe what the elders around me to believe, or do I believe something on my own? That is a very relatable struggle. So again, add steps to the characters, helps push back the white room. Unless they're in the hospital, you know, in the coat, and then yeah, maybe the white room is part of their Earl Grey with ginger. I'm having throat issues with the snowstorm. Okay, let's go on to chat question number 10. Question number 10 is, when you're world building, do you have religious or civil holidays? How do they party? How do different groups feel about these things? Now, one of the reasons that I went into this is um, people celebrate different holidays in very, very different ways. Birthdays, winter holidays. We just got through the winter holidays, and the New Year's, the multiple New Year's holidays are all over now. Next holiday is Valentine's Day. It's coming up very fast. And how people celebrate things, if you have a non-Earth, non-contemporary setting, are you going to build holidays into this culture? I mean, is it like the thing where, you know, there's a government holiday like, oh, I don't know, Thanksgiving, where some people see this holiday as one thing and then another minority group sees it as another thing? Is there a caste system in place in your society where, like, there are people in power and there are people not in power? And so when the people in the power have the holidays, the people who are not in power are like, oh, yay, we're celebrating, but we really don't want to be celebrating this. Um, it can it can be a very, very dynamic thing to add to just a minor, just a mention can make it very, it can make your world seem more relatable and more real to your reader. Um, in Relic of Time and Shadows War, the Twin Kingdoms, they evolved from the same base culture, but they now have very different religions. And even though they share all their holiday dates, they are celebrated very differently. For example, the winter solstice. For the Aetherians, the children of the light, it is a time of family gathering and music and just closeness and being together. For the Zalusians, the followers of the shadows of the devourer, it is a time of debauchery and a time of sacrifice and a time when you bring your firstborn or your youngest to be offered, and you go and you give blood offerings. And there's a scene in the huntsman's honor, and then that is repeated later in the huntsman's hatred, where they talk. I've got like 85% power. I don't know why it keeps disconnecting. But in the two books there's a mention of how during the war, as the night of longest shadows, in on Aetheria, it's the winter solstice is called the eve of light returning because it's the longest night of the year. On Zalusia, it is called the night of longest shadows, and they talk about how as this night approached, older siblings and young mothers would flee to the Aetherian lines in the war to keep the children or younger siblings from being sacrificed. So again, same holiday, same date, two very different celebrations. Um, Next, we're going to go to which this leads us right into question number 11. Is question number 11, hashtag whip chat, hashtag world building. Every culture has something it sees as normal that is shocking to outsiders. It gives your world a little bit, an extra layer of depth. What are your cultural quirks and taboos? Um, Again, back to Relic of Time and Shadows War. Um, the Aetherians were very modest and very, very devoted and valued all life and loyalty above almost everything. And the Zalusians had none of those values. So that the debauchery that went on the Night of Longest Shadows was something that was just shocking to the Aetherians. And they actively sought to stop this. However, for the Zalusians, they saw this as perfectly normal. Their people had been doing this for tens of thousands of years, and they didn't think anything about selling or sacrificing their children. There were no marriages. Um, it was a society where it was like if Las Vegas was a world. That's the only way I can describe it. The worst form of Las Vegas was its own world. Um, so again, um, having these things, seeing things like this that we see, that you as an author might be like, oh my gosh, that people inside your book or people reading your book might be completely shocked about, that you might not be normal, that to you might not be that strange, is a very fine line to walk. I'm trying to think of an example that's not going to set off a firestorm. Uh, I'm drawing a blank right now. Okay, here's an example. Steampunk. Friend of mine is writing a steampunk book. I was reading a different author's book, and a person was getting their synthetic organ repossessed, basically. They had failed to make the payments and they were getting their organ repossessed. And the organ harvesters literally like jumped them on the street, threw them down, and started cutting them open. And people were just walking by like they weren't even seeing it. And, you know, us on the outside or us in our own world, if somebody cut someone, started, threw them down on the sidewalk and started taking their kidney out, we'd be like, call 911. But in that world, it was not that abnormal. So the people weren't even seeing it anymore. Um, Sometimes dress code from one culture to another. That is a very good way to add that touch of shock value. Again, the Aetherians had this very modest dress code. They tended to cover themselves. So when one of them moved to Earth and was actually going to a human college to try to learn the culture, they were quite shocked about how the college girls dressed and the fact that there were topless beaches just a dozen miles away from the college, and he literally asked the human character that he's having a conversation with. He's like, why do human females run around in their underwear all the time? And she's like, well, first, we're at the beach and it's not underwear. And second, you know, it doesn't bother us to be looked at, although there are some people that are pushy. So that was something that the topics can come up. You can make the taboo or the quirk into part of meeting the character, meeting the culture. Question 12. Question 12. How do your families, clans, classes, sects, tiers, ranks, etc., how do these different layers of groups interact? Do they help each other? Do they pull rank on each other? Is it royals versus commoners? Do they get along? These can create a very dynamic level of relationship inside your groups. The most right now, um, the most dramatic, like different relationships is, you know, we always talk about the 1% and the 99%. That's something we talk about in American culture a lot, but it's not just that. There's this huge class gap from the upper middle class to the middle class to the lower class to the homeless, very lowest class. And along with these attitudes about where you are economically, it affects where you are considered socially. And I mean, you can use these ranking relationships. I mean, you can use them in sports. You can use them in military. You can use them in family systems just for sibling rivalry's sake. You can create levels of tension in your story by expressing these different class rankings, sex, tiers, however you refer to them. And the Book of Elo series in the Ghost with Ink and Ghost with Cats, Ghost with Ink, and Ghost with Hopes is something that my human female MC is constantly dealing with because of all of the females are ranked 10th tier and higher because there are 12,000 females and almost a million males because female births are so low. So pretty much they get to do whatever they want simply because there are so few of them, while the males are ranked by their skill, their house of birth, the rank of their father. And this elitism that they have in their tier system actually takes a very, very dark turn because their species is becoming extinct. So they start cloning a work and war force. And all of the clones are 51st tier and lower down to the 99th tier. And the clones, even though they're living beings, even though they're made from LO DNA, they're adulterated. They are not, they have like quirks, like they have denser bones, they have denser muscles, they have thicker skin. They're basically more durable, and they have altered features and no ability to reproduce on their own. They're basically grown in a pod until they're 12. They emerge almost fully grown, and they immediately train for 2 to 5 years and take a task. The clones are considered biomachines. They're not even ranked as the same as animals. Animals have value, animals have purpose. The cloned workforce of Elo, which are called pets, the word translates to pet in our language. Um, they are just machines. And many Elo do not care if they live or die. And if they kill one, I'll just get another one. There's a scene where a ship gets destroyed by the enemy in the war, and 10,000 pets are killed or they think they're killed. They don't know that they are actually the enemy actually rescues them and takes them back. But they think all of these pets were killed. Um, they think all these pets are killed, but 10,000, and all they care about is that one Elo died. The Elo captain died with the ship. And so that shows the classism toxicity that is happening in their culture, because they have living beings that they don't even consider living beings. Um, so, and like the sibling dynamic, who is the favored child? Who is the least favorite child? Who is the child that is just either getting forgotten or, oh my God, this child doesn't have problems, let's not bother them. This cousin is orphaned, oh, let's feel sorry for them, or oh, let's ignore them and pretend bad things don't, adding these tier levels into your family dynamics, your culture dynamics, adds that extra layer of tension into your story that makes it relatable and believable for your reader. All right, next question. Hashtag whip chat, world building, question number 13. Now, I love languages. Before I had my stroke, German, Japanese, I was learning Japanese, French, a little bit of Spanish, Latin. I love languages. And so when I create these worlds, one of the things I do to add a layer to my culture, because every culture has slangs. You got to have the language. If you're creating a culture that's a not contemporary small town, urban city, you've got to have slang. Um, and one of the things I think, I am a big Brown Coat Nation fan. Firefly and Serenity, I loved that world build. And the fact that they were literally calling China to get the latest slang for the episodes so they could have slang in Mandarin and Cantonese, I thought was fabulous. So you got to have the slang, man. You can't go around cursing or praying or just saying. Um, so I have, there are several of my either AU, Earth, Terra Earth adjacent realities where I have created slang, and places like there's a discussion in Ghost with Ink where spill the tea means the same thing on Earth that it does in Elo. And it's in Relic of Time and Shadows because the Aetherians are semi-immortal, and they've been fighting this war against the shadow for thousands of years. And then then humans are starting to help them, and they're working together, and the Aetherians start to pick up human colloquialisms, human mannerisms, and they'll say, normally for blessings, they'll say like, "May the light shine on you," or the followers of the darkness will say, "Until the shadows rise." Um, but part of the lore of that world is like they'll like to curse someone. They'll like say, "The shadows take you," and creating that kind of something that is specific to that group shows that they are different than the normal human contemporary groups. Having it's like the code languages and the secret handshakes and stuff that they've talked about all through culture for thousands of years, all the way back to the Iliad and the Odyssey. They had these colloquialisms, they had prayers, they had blessings, they had slang. And it seems weird to talk about the ancient Greeks having slangs, but they did. So just a thing to make your world, if you're writing a fantasy or sci-fi world, to make it a little more believable. If you're writing like military fiction, find you some vets, go down to the VA, and talk to them of like, what kind of slang did you guys use in your area of operation? And you'll find out that the things they say might not make sense to us as civilians, but it made sense to them at the time. Also, like if you're writing cyberpunk, find some gamers, sit down and talk with your 12, 13 to 16-year-old kids about what kind of gamer slang they use. Because language is a living, evolving thing. And even slang from different parts of the country are different and mean different things. For example, the colloquialism, getting the milk for free. In the United States, if you say somebody's getting the milk for free, it means that they are in a promiscuous relationship and they have no intention of making a commitment. In Asia, getting the milk for free means someone who is stealing the credit for work that someone else is doing. So be sure you find out if you're using a specific like ethnic group or culture or religious group. Make sure you find out what those really mean to them, because again, you don't want to fall into the offending someone because you have inappropriately appropriated their culture, their religion, or their language. That is all I have to talk about today. We are at 40 minutes almost. So thank you for joining us for hashtag whip chat, hashtag worldbuilding. Next week, we're going to talk about, if I can get this fixed, we're going to talk about the how and the where of your world. So it's going to be an interesting discussion on the environment and technology to build into your world, to give it something interesting. I'm Mama Maggie. I hope you have a very lovely weekend. Be blessed, and I will see you next time on hashtag whip chat.